be talking about how to take apart this steering gearbox. This is for a 2006 Jeep Wrangler. This is my first time taking it apart, but we're going to try to tab it for hydro assist and get it all resealed and ready to go. Let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is going to be taking off this plate. I already undid these two screws. I undid all the screws here, and so it's ready to go. I just put them on there so they'd stay on. So the way this works off is it kind of just spins off slowly as you spin the input shaft, and it comes out. And this is your worm gear, and it just sits on there like so. Just gonna place it to the side. So now we can see all of our ball bearings on the inside here. You gotta be careful not to lose all these, so I'm just gonna kind of try to dump them out. Get them out of the cage. So now we can see I got the input shaft out. So we got all of our ball bearings. You want to keep close attention to all these. Just gonna put them in my tray here. This is just like the top of the trash can lid. Still got some more in there I'm gonna fish out. Finish. Make sure we get all of them. Always moving through. It looks like one more left in there. Good bugger to get out of there. There she goes. Looks like we got all the ball bearings over there. Alright, so now from here, we got the worm gear out. We rotate it around. We're gonna have the backside adjuster nut, which makes adjust the sprocket on the inside for spinning your piston in and out. What I did is I took a little mark and I just tapped it with a hammer, marked the bolt. Let's see if I can find it real fast. I already undid it just to try and make this video go a little faster. So you can see that little mark right there. That's where I took it apart, and then I marked it on the casting right here to signify where the bolt went, and then I counted the threads for the adjuster, so I was 2 threads in at this mark here. That was 2 threads in for my adjustment screw, and then from there, after this bolt's off. Alright, so after you get this nut off, you marked, you adjust this out until you can adjust it out. I did it until it pops off on the edge, and then I adjust it back in until I can rotate my piston, and then I just keep rotating, and now the piston drops off and it's just ready to be pulled out. There's no ball bearings left in there. This is our piston alec housing. Set that aside. Remember how that goes. We already took the ball bearings out, and then do it like so. And you see on the inside our actual sprocket. So you see how adjusting this changes that in and out of where it goes. And then now we just got to pull out the center section. And then let me show you how to do that. Alright, so I got the piston out, got our adjuster screw. I adjusted it to help push this out, and then once I got it out, I had to go over to the vise, which I didn't show on the camera, and then basically all I did was use a dead blow and a block of wood, and I just worked it all the way around to evenly pull this gasket out of the inside of the cylinder. That's all that's holding in there is this, and then obviously we have some bearings, and then the outside gasket, which rides on your rim. And then from here, you just get your Allen key, and then you're just gonna have to screw your... Alright, so sorry for getting my arm in the way, but basically all I'm doing is taking that Allen key and turning it clockwise, which is gonna bring that the shaft out. And you want to make sure that you're feeding it through straight, because if it's a little canted to the side, it'll get stuck on the case as you're trying to take it out.
and then it won't be able to pull out. So you gotta make sure to just turn and have it in the right direction. That way, as you're rotating it, it just pops right out.
And then after it's all threaded through, you now have the shaft out, and you see how the adjuster is made. It's just on like a little thing, so when you pull it, it threads through the bottom of the housing here. We're gonna put this aside, and then now we basically have an empty housing. Obviously, there's a little gross to housing, and it's gunky in there. You see how the bearing rides on the outside of the edge. We have a gasket here. This is for a bearing lube, so it's lubing your inside of your bearing on this housing here, and it goes through here. Make sure to wash that out when you're banging on it, everything like that. So from here, we basically just have a housing, and then we're going to move on to tapping this for hydro assist, and then put it all back together. Alright, so now I'm on the input shaft, and all I'm going to do is take the back end of a punch, and then I'm just going to, it's got these rings, I don't have the socket or anything for it, so I'm just going to put the punch on the back side.
Alright, so right here, I'm just finished banging it out. As you can see, I had a little bit of trouble. However, after a few attempts, I go ahead and get it, and it should be coming off right here.
You see how I got it to turn. I'll loosen the ring. Take a giant pair of nose of pliers to loosen the spanner wrench nut, because I don't have a spanner wrench on hand for right now. And then it was flush with this, so I know where it was sitting. And after this comes out, it'll allow me to remove that. Then you can see it does have a bearing, faceplate, and then it does have another thrust washer. Basically, you want to make sure to keep all that in line, and this ring is what's holding this in. So now we get to this seal and replace that. Then we just gotta bust out that O-ring and then put the new one in. So this O-ring comes out the other way. Just got a good size socket on there. Slowly working it out. It's coming straight out. It's out. Done. Just like that. Put that aside. Inspect it. And then I'm going to go clean it up, and then we'll put the new seal in.
So now you can see me putting in the new seal. Make sure to put a light coat of grease on it so it slides in there. I'm just pressing it on each side, working it with my fingers. And then now I'm taking a 7/8 socket, and that's how I'm gonna beat it in the rest of the way to make sure that it's fully seated in there.
Make sure it's seated all the way around. It is good to go. Alright, so now, for in this step, I'm going to clean up the input shaft on the worm gear. I'm going to apply a little bit of just the smallest hair of ATF to this to make sure that it spins good and there's nothing in there, and then put that together. Alright, so now I'm just going to do a little bit more grease around the inside of the seal so it doesn't rip it once I put the shaft through. Very gentle. Gonna get your pliers again. It doesn't have to be very tight. That's why I'm using them. Just like that. Make sure our input shafts turns. gonna make it a little looser. I think I did it a little too tight. Just snug. That's a lot better right there. We're gonna put our lock nut on. And then now I'm just gonna get my screwdriver and set this lock washer in back where it needs to be, which is just tight. Alright, that's tight. Make sure input shaft still spins. Finger tight, it does. Our ring's good to go. Tight. Alright. So, took me a second to figure out, but so it took me a second to figure out, but while I was doing it, I messed up the snap ring. So this is how it goes together. There's a dust shield in the top that you have to take off. Then there'll be a snap ring to help get it off. You can push down the inner seal down back into the housing, and that'll make this ring come out right easy with the snap ring pliers. And then you have your final ring, which also pops out after that, and then you're good to reassemble. Alright, so I got my parts laid out. I got my inner seal, snap ring, and then I have my outer dust shield. And then before I forget, this is the part number I use from AutoZone. The whole rebuild kit is around $70. Alright, so what I clean this up, get a little grease, just a hair bit, smother it, get a thin layer on my inner seal. I'm going to go ahead and put it in there. And then this one I'm going to have to get a big socket and smack it in there real fast. Got my socket. And make sure it's seated all the way inside. And then we can go ahead and put our new snap ring in. What was a booger? Alright, our snap ring is all the way seated. Before I get past this, I'm just going to apply a little bit more grease to the inner side of the shaft seal. That way when we get the shaft in there, it slides right in. A little bit to the bearing on the inside as well. Just a thin layer for they don't have the dry start. Then we're going to do our dust shield. Thin layer, so it just slides in a little easier. This side's going to be facing in. Is in place. Ready to move on to the O-ring. O-ring, same thing. Thin layer of grease on the outside of it to make install easier. Just going to slip it over. Alright, and then make sure it's greased. That way it slides right into the housing that we're going to use. And then this part is done, and now we're ready to move on to the next one. So now we're going to start putting this back together. We're going to take out the little cage that holds the bearings. Alright, now we got our socket in there. Break them free. Take our cage out.
As well, for those bolts, there are going to be retaining clips on each side. You're just going to have to pry those down flat, and then you'll be able to fit your socket on there and take it off.
And when I'm gonna sort these, put them on each side that they came from, along with the cap. And then we can take our cage out for the bearings. So now we can reinstall these a little easier than the way we took them out. Throw that up. Make sure there's nothing crazy in there. Alright. Put our carrier aside. Alright, so we're going to put the worm gear back into the cylinder. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this up with 8 beads. 8. It's going to get filled up with 8 beads, and then I'm going to set it aside. Put this over like that. Then I'm going to give it a little grease on the top of the sides of the balls to help hold them in during installation. I'm just going to set that aside for now. It's got 8 balls in there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to slightly put the worm gear in to about where the top goes past the first one just barely. So it'll be on the second hole here, inside of the second one. Then from here, I'm just going to slowly and surely drop a bead in, turn it, drop a bead in, turn it, ever so slightly, drop bead in, turn it, drop bead in, turn it, drop bead in, turn it, drop bead in, oh, doesn't want to go in, there we go. And if it starts to bind up and not go down, you have to go the same way. You can't let it come back in the cage. You can't let it come back in this cage or else it'll jam up. So you just gotta slowly keep going with it. And now you can start feeling the worm gear being straight in there. You keep going with it. Just bead after bead. I'll fast on the last parts. I don't know if you really see that too well, but the beads are flush with the top of the hole, which is going to allow us to put our cage in with the 8 rest of them. And we got our grease on there, like so. Just going to flip it in. Spin the sprocket a little bit, the worm gear. Now that they're in there, going to put our cage back on, the retainer. Make sure not to forget our little headlocks. Gonna rotate it all the way in there. This is also a 10mm as well. It's just so the retainer can stay in, and then I'm going to have the locks on them anyways. And then before you put it all back together and you put those retainers back on, you want to make sure that your worm gear is functioning, like so. Coming all the way out. It's about there. You don't want to come out too far, or else those beads are going to drop back in there. You have to do this again. And then you want to go all the way in. And just make sure it's nice and smooth, like so. And then now this portion is done. I'm going to put some fluid on this, some power steering fluid or ATF on the cylinder. That way I can insert it into the cylinder housing easier. Alright, so I put fluid around this to make sure that it just slides in there really well. Don't forget your gasket to put that on there. Make sure to put your gasket on there, or else you'll have to take this all back apart. And that doesn't sound like a fun time at all. So, rotate around. And then make sure when you're doing this, you're lining up that hole with this hole here, or else you're going to have a bearing go bad because it's not going to get the oil flow that it needs. And then you're just going to take it, rotate it. There's going to be a little key on the bottom. As well, I forgot to mention for this, when you put them in there, if you need to, you can just poke it with a screwdriver to keep them from popping out. Anywho, so for this, you're just going to softly guide it in there. Don't force it. It should just slide right in, like so. Get the key in. And then now, we just got to line up our hole to hole down here. And then now we're ready to put a bolt in. Bolt right here. And these are just going to be the 6. I'm just going to put in 2 right now, hand tight, to make sure that it all lines up. And then if it pushes out, you just got to suck it in a little bit. Like so. And get another bolt in there to help line up your gasket. But make sure that when you're doing this rotates. You're going to want to line the key up right here on the inside of the housing, just so now we can slide in our key. So now I'm just going to slide in our sector shaft here. Just so you want to make sure that you line this up the best you can so the gears interlock properly. Now it's going to be like that. Now we have to come underneath. We're just going to get our set screw started. Just got to thread it all the way out. So, I put this back in there. I'm going to wait to adjust the play until I get the top of the housing back on, because that's going to force this shaft to be too loose or too tight. But we'll find out. Just got this little O-ring right here I need to remove, so I'm going to take my pick, grab it, just going to get a napkin, kind of clean the face up real fast. Repair kit. Keeping the repair kit's little O-ring I need. Just put it right in there. Get a light layer of grease. And now we're ready for our new O-ring. And then this just goes on there. There's no seal for this because this is your seal. And then I'm just gonna plop it in there. I've greased this. I've greased that seal so nothing catches. Go ahead. I already tightened it up, but I'm gonna break it free. me go up with it more. That way it can be in or out. It has more play to do what I need it to. Alright, I pushed it in, make sure that it's all seating correctly. And then I'm just going to help it out with a little mallet. Dead blow.
You'll see at the end of this how I put the bolts in, and that's to make sure it's lined up, and I don't have it to worry about trying to turn it. And then I hammer it down the rest of the way, and then I suck it in with the bolts at the end.
So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up, the impact real fast, just to tighten them up. So, as you can see, I tighten all these. You do a cross pattern and then go all the way around, make sure they're all tight. Same thing with the top cross, and then just check and make sure they're all tight. Then you just got to work out the play in your steering wheel. You want to make sure that this rotates all the way, lock to lock, with your adjustment screw. Remember what you did in the beginning, mark the bolt, and then counted your 2 threads is what I had on mine, so that's why I set it back as, and I rotate all the way around, make sure it wasn't excessive play, but it was just right. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, if you have any questions about doing the steering box, just leave them down in the comments below. I'll try to get to them. And then, yeah, I would totally recommend this instead of paying somebody if you feel like you can do it. It wasn't that hard. This is my first time doing this gearbox, so I didn't know what to expect. I couldn't find any videos on it. So that's why I made the video, and hopefully it'll help you out. See you next time.